My Room 101 would just be like, put me on a plane with light turbulence and I'm done. I'm converting straight away. I'm betraying everybody. I am becoming a loyal follower to the party. Case closed. Hello friends, family, sworn enemies. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. I'm finally taking space on YouTube. This is my very first YouTube video, so please be gentle with me. My name is Deans and I love watching things and reading things and then talking loudly at people about them. So that's what you can expect from this channel. Now, my favorite types of videos are always the end of year wrap-ups, the ones where people talk about their favorite books or their favorite films of the year. So I thought, what better way to kick off my own channel than to do one of these videos? And in the case of today, we are talking about the 5 best books that I read in 2024.
Oh, perfect.
Now, this is not a ranked video. I'm going to talk about all these 5 books equally. I love them all so much. I don't want to pick between my children. Don't make me.
Ready? Okay.
Okay, we're starting with East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Now, shout out to Anna Wallace-Johnson, who is one of my favorite booktubers, who has mentioned frequently that East of Eden is her favorite book of all time. So I had to pick it up. And Anna, I owe you a gift basket. This book is incredible. Thank you so much for the recommendation. Chefs everywhere are kissing. Now, if a book's ending makes me weep, it automatically goes in the pantheon of all-time personal favorites. It's my Achilles heel. It's my catnip. I crave an emotionally debilitating ending. And boy, did I get what I wanted. This is a multi-generational epic family saga with 1 million characters that are all equal in their complexity. That's the first sign of a great writer, yeah? Like when you have more characters than the English dictionary has words and you can somehow make them all equally three-dimensional and fully fleshed out. No character or storyline here is lacking. This book is full of tragedy, hope, wisdom, melancholy, and I was never once bored when I was reading it. Even when Steinbeck spends pages and pages talking about the Californian landscape, I am enthralled. Now, I just want to read you guys a passage that I think perfectly encapsulates how well John Steinbeck understands characterization. But Tom got into a book, crawled and groveled between the covers, tunneled like a mole among the thoughts, and came up with the book all over his face and hands. Now, if that's not the best description of someone who loves literature and just has literature like seeping out of their bones, I don't know what is. The next book I want to talk about is Swing Time. I'm so embarrassed to say this. I finally read my first Zadie Smith. I know I'm very late to the game. My apologies. Am I even a reader? I wrote on Goodreads that Zadie Smith has such a deep, intimate understanding of her deeply flawed characters and writes them in a way that is so real and human and fair. I can't wait to read everything she's ever written. Facts. Like John Steinbeck, I feel the need to read her entire catalogue feverishly, immediately. As John Steinbeck said about his character Tom, I just want all her books all over my face all the time. I just think she's a magnificent writer. Swing Time is all about trying to find your identity and your purpose when people are telling you what your identity and purpose is, when people aren't allowing you to create these things for yourself, when they're just putting you in boxes. It explores racism and class struggle in Britain, which I have heard are themes that Zadie Smith often explores in her books. If you aren't familiar with the plot of Swing Time, it's about 2 very codependent friends who grow up together. They both want to be dancers, and then they sort of inevitably grow apart and lead very, very different lives. I thought the characters were really rich and very well written. You know, it's a real character study. This is very much a character study. So if you're a fan of like slow burns and character-led stories, this one will definitely scratch that itch for you. Next up is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now, this is a reread. I like how I said Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, like there's any doubt that it was written by anyone else. I read this back in high school in a introduction to science fiction class, and I just remember falling in love with it and saying that it was going to be my favorite book of all time. And honestly, that hasn't really changed. It was the first science fiction book I remember adoring and also understanding. This is a great gateway to classic literature. If you're often bored by classics, or you haven't really read many but you're curious, I would say give Frankenstein a go. It's really, really palatable. It's super accessible with all these universal experiences that we can relate to, like rejection and betrayal and heartbreak and jealousy and loneliness. Your idea of who the true villain is will change from page to page. It's so compelling. I just can't believe Mary Shelley wrote this when she was 18. Like, the most impressive thing I did, honestly, when I was 18 was read this book. Frankenstein follows two of the most tragic characters in literature, bound together by creation and death. Both Dr. Frankenstein and his creation are so monstrous and empathetic at the same time in completely different ways. Every time I read this, I feel new things. Every time I read this, I sympathize more with a different character. Originally, I was all Team Monster, but as I've gotten older and I've taken on more responsibilities in my own life and I've read this book more times, I've really come to sympathize hard with Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah, he's a bad daddy and he's a reckless scientist, but he didn't really deserve what happened to him. It's pretty awful. I think the moral of Frankenstein is like, just kind of be happy with what you've got. Like, you don't need to play God. You don't need to mess around in his playground. You don't need to bite apples you're not meant to. You don't need to fly too close to the sun. Like, just deal with being human. It's enough.
I made a mistake.
Now, the next book I want to talk about is Orwell's 1984. Now, this is a reread for me, and my love of this book is more of an intellectual response than an emotional one. You don't really read 1984 and like not include it in your favorite books of the year. Like, in what world is someone putting this in their honorable mentions? Yeah, living in a world where 1984 is outside anyone's favorite books of the year is not a world I want to live in. And frankly, neither is the world of 1984. But unfortunately, we're well and truly there. For me personally, I'm not that invested in the characters or their relationship, but what I am invested in with this book is how evergreen this book is and how singular it is in distilling real world horrors into a pretty short and accessible read. It's a favorite to me because it sharpens and confirms my thoughts about how I feel about this world. I love it because reading it feels like an act of rebellion itself, which I'm sure is what Orwell felt when he wrote it. Like, it's such a fuck you to every system of control and authority and totalitarianism, and I just think that's so hot. You know, in the book, Winston remarks that the best books are the ones that tell you what you know already, the ones that set our scattered thoughts in order. And honestly, that's how I feel about 1984. I can appreciate the themes and the messages of this book so much more as an adult who understands real life systems like capitalism and socialism and communism, concepts like cognitive dissonance, unchecked government power, historical revisionism, and the weaponization of fear. Now, when I first read this book back in high school, I was like pretty naive. I had a surface understanding of what these terms and what these systems meant, but I didn't really know shit. I was like 18. It read more like fantasy to me, like some kind of abstraction, like something really dark that was scary, but it would never happen here. It was like a far away kind of thought experiment. I was like, fuck, this is really dark, but this is like a dude's imagination of something that would never happen in the real world. I hadn't yet encountered real world parallels to 1984 because I was a teenager. I was in my own like egotistical teenage bubble. I was so naive. Reading 1984 now, in an age of rising conspiracy theories, rising fascism, corporate elitism, concentrated wealth, mass apathy, like historical and media censorship, is a deeply chilling exercise. It's very, very different from a first-time read when you are just out of puberty. I highly recommend people who maybe read it in school to read it again because you're just going to get an even deeper, more layered experience of the book. And you'll just get so much more out of it. It just becomes more prescient and more relevant as the years go on. And I don't know how Orwell did that. Now, I've saved the most uplifting, sunshine-filled book for last. That being The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And if you are familiar with The Road, you'll know how facetious that introduction was because there is literally no sunshine in The Road. It is about a dying planet. For those who've never read The Road, it's about a man and his son who are just trying to survive and just keep going in a post-apocalyptic, burnt-out America. We know some kind of climate crisis has taken place, but the book never specifies what that actually is. It's not really the point. All we know is that it's the end of the world and we're following these two characters as they're constantly oppressed by all these horrific things that come with a post-apocalyptic landscape. Now, in my opinion, this is the greatest piece of post-apocalyptic storytelling that is out there. And I know I'm not alone in that sentiment. This is a lot of people's favorite book of all time, and I completely understand why. It won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction the year it came out, and it shows the depths that a person can go through in order to survive, not just for himself, but for his kid. Although deeply grim, there is so much beauty in The Road. Now, even as the father and son are being oppressed daily by this brutal environment, you know, the sun is literally dying. They're being attacked by these like horrible, unforgiving weather patterns. Ash is flying everywhere. They often go weeks without food. They never once lose any sense of their humanity. They show kindness and empathy to strangers, even when it's dangerous to do so. The father reads to his son whenever he can. They're considerate of others, even when that kindness is not returned. You know, they're always resisting. They're always resisting against a brutal world that wants them to turn mean, that wants them to become cannibals, that wants them to become immoral, and they just refuse to do it. It's a little bit similar to Winston's Rebellion in 1984. There seems to be a bit of a pattern here with the kind of books that I gravitate towards. The last thing I want to say about The Road is how exquisite and evocative the writing is. When describing the barren landscapes and the descriptions of what the son and his father are going through, Cormac McCarthy manages to make the writing really harsh, but really lyrical and beautiful and poetic at the same time. He makes poetry out of these really bleak observations that is just beautiful. And I wanted to read you guys an example of what I mean. So the narrator is describing the aesthetic of the dying world. Okay, so he writes, "Dark of the invisible moon, the night's now only slightly less black. By day, the banished sun circles the earth like a grieving mother with a lamp." Ugh. And you know, every single sentence is like that quality. It's all poetry from beginning to end. I love this book so much. I cried so much when I finished it. I'm still scooping my heart up off the floor. It's a total heartbreaker. And if you are like me and you like emotionally debilitating endings, you must read The Road. And that's it. Those are my 5 favorite books of the year. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I don't know what I'm talking about? Please let me know. And let me know what your favorite books of the year were. And if you have books that you think I'll love based on what I've just been speaking about, let me know, because I'm always looking for an excuse to read more books and to buy more books. Thank you so much for watching. I think I've taken up more than enough of your time today. So I will see you guys soon with another video. Mum, I love you. Thank you for watching. Okay, bye.